Hello, true art believers, and welcome to my YouTube channel, where I make videos of acrylic pour paintings, live stream drawing videos, and have interviews with artists internationally around the world. Before I start, make sure to smash the subscribe button and hit the notifications bell. You don't even have to do that because I don't think people even use the notifications bell anymore. It's probably all our phones just kind of notify us every time now. So people's we're all sedated for that now. So don't even do that. Just follow and hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Tonight I'll be talking with Kevin Grass, who is a world famous hyper-realist acrylic painter that lives in Tarpon Springs, Florida. His current body of work, called Lame Ducks, features yellow rubber ducks in a series of narrative images inspired by idioms or phrases that uses the word duck or words that rhyme with duck. The resulting images are witty, humorous, and sometimes ironic. These visual puns are often worthy of inciting groans, hence the inclusion of the word lame in the title for the series. Kevin has some amazing work, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say about them. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I just want to state that I think your intro was probably the longest intro I've done so far.
Sorry.
So tell me what's been going on with you, Kevin. What's going on with you in the art world?
Well, I'm working on rebranding myself because since probably before 2000, had been working on a series of figure paintings that dealt with social issues, more or less, contemporary social issues. And they did well in shows. They got published. They won awards. But sales some did sell, don't get me wrong. But there weren't many because they were, in order to make any money out of them, I had to make them a little bigger. And then it became only a certain type of person could afford the paintings when they got to the size they became. So they would range anywhere between 30 by 40 inches all the way up to the biggest one was 7 by 14 feet.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was huge. So I was looking for something else, something so that I wouldn't be making paintings for my storage racks because I'd finish them and then they'd go there. I really didn't have anything to do with them. So I scaled down quite a bit. The new series is 16 by 20 inches for each painting, and came up with some themes that were more fun, something that I think that would make people laugh. Because when I was showing my figure paintings in the international art fairs in Miami and New York, I noticed that the ones that got the most attention were the ones that had some humor to them. So I thought, well, I'll try something like that. And that's when I came up with this idea for using the yellow rubber ducks and still lifes. They're painted the same way as the figure paintings, but they take a lot less time because they're not as complex and they're a lot smaller. So that way I can still paint and not have to give it up and do something else because I'm running out of room.
Do you still have those paintings hanging out in the painting rack?
Which ones? The figure?
The large ones?
Well, yeah, I have them in the racks. I have them hanging around the house. So, and again, most of them are 30 by 40 or something like that. They're not huge. The 7 by 14 footers rolled up and in my office down at school where I teach at the college. I have no room for it here.
Do you think you'll ever be able to sell them?
If I had the right venue,
Yeah.
or the right agent, then it's possible that I could potentially sell them. In fact, just last time I talked to you, since then I got a call from an agent that I had years ago, and he's interested in doing the images as, what are they called? NFTs, the non-fungible tokens, and seeing what happens selling those as digital images on that in that format, because evidently that's the hot thing now.
Yeah. Do you know anything about those NFTs?
I not really. I mean, I know that they're just buying a digital file.
Yeah.
And I need to talk to a person that specializes in law. What is that called? I can't remember now.
Art law.
Yeah,
That's what it's called. Art
name.
law.
I can't remember. There's a guy locally, and I need to talk to him about copyright, because when I looked online at some legal sites, they said that the artist retains copyright, so I could still continue to make put the images on cups and shirts and things like that. And because it's a painting, I could sell it.
Yeah.
That the person that buys the token only buys the token. If that's the case, that's going to be great. If it's not, then I'm not sure how much I really want to get into it.
It's a weird, like, I haven't done any research, but like from my very, very brief understanding, or what I've kind of collected from people talking about it, is it's like a blockchain image file.
Yeah.
So like the owner, the owner you can't like steal the file. It's that person's file. Like what, and if someone steals it, it's like it's traced back to the original owner of that NFT. So it's probably like just a novel thing, at the moment. And I don't know. If I reflect upon, like, I don't know, like, the utility of it for the future, unless
it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, maybe if we think about it, maybe if we were in a virtual world and you had a Second Life house. You ever heard of Second Life?
No, I haven't.
Second Life is like, it literally means Second Life. It is like it's like, have you heard of SimCity, the game?
Yes, I have.
Minecraft. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So it's like SimCity and Minecraft, where you basically just live a second life, and you earn electronic currency. You go to a job, and it's really what it is. You have a second life, and maybe you had like maybe you bought something you have an NFT, and you're like, check out this nice NFT in my Second Life house. Maybe something like that. I don't know the utility of it at the moment, but that's going to be very interesting to hear what your agent has to say about that, and what your art lawyer has to say.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what. I'm curious to find out what, if you're willing to tell me later on, like what happened. Like what were the details? Maybe I could think about going into it temporarily and see if it's worth my time. But then again, a lot people, what was it like? It made some people like millionaires. There's a lot of artists that
one sold for over $60 million.
Yeah,
a digital file.
Here's your JPEG.
It's really a format for digital art. I mean,
Yeah.
It's really what it's for. I mean, you can digitize paintings and sculpture and things like that, but it's, as far as I can tell, it's more for digital. But there's not really a lot of information about it because it's so new.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can see the things that are selling, and they're trite, to put it mildly.
And when you were the pieces that are in storage, you have to find the right buyer. Like what kind of clientele was buying those pieces?
People over 40, because you have to have money.
Yeah.
I've sold to conservatives and liberals, so there wasn't a split politically. People that were educated, people that knew something about art, so they knew what they were getting. And I mean, the range of, were they eccentric or not? No, it wasn't people coming. Where I sold most of these was at the art fairs, like down in Miami.
Yeah.
The people that were buying were not the people that were wearing the suit and tie to the show.
Mm-hmm.
They were people that had a lot of money, and you didn't know it because they walked in t-shirts and blue jeans, and they just pointed, oh, I want that one. You'd be shocked, like,
give me that.
Excuse me. So people from New York and New England, and also people from California, and obviously in Miami.
Yeah.
So I guess the best thing would be to have a gallery that can do it for me, because I work full time, so I don't have the time for that.
Yeah. Would you care to share like the price tag of one of your big pieces, or is it confidential?
No, I don't care. I had one that was, what was it? 5.5 by 6.5 feet, and that one sold for over $30,000.
Woo!
And it was great. And the guy that bought it hung it on his ceiling. In fact, you'll see an image of it later.
Hung it on his ceiling
because he had no more room in his place. I thought it was great. over his dining table. Right? Most of them are in the range from about $5,000 up to about $20,000, roughly.
Yeah. And so let's just look at some of these. We have these in queue here, and let's look at some. And we can talk about like I'd like for you to break down maybe some of the process, some of the processes that you go through, how long you probably spent on it, maybe the how you came to this idea. Where is there a lot of studies involved? How much detail do you go in prior to actually working on some of these pieces? So
Sure.
They're actually really, really good, folks. Really good. All right. So Kevin, let's talk about this one right here. And you can start going through all your pieces if you like. So I've seen this a couple times, just kind of through the internet, because the internet's there. But I stumbled on this before I even knew you.
This one's been in several different places. It was in International Artist Magazine because it won one of the competitions there. And they're really good about, the entry fees for that are really low. So anybody that does painting, you should enter those. It's because you never know.
The International Artist Magazine?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah,
I'm going to put it in my journal too. How about that?
And because it got in there, it also got into American Art Collector. And I've also got it online at a site that has to do with addiction. And the people that are part of that can download the image. And evidently, the people that have downloaded it from there, it's had a big impact on their lives. Actually, a story about this one.
Yeah.
Do you know the band Blue October? They're an alternative rock band.
I'm not familiar, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, we had been on Twitter with the lead singer, and we went to the concert, and my wife thought it would be a good idea to take a poster of this with us. And so we waited in line to talk to them. We got up to the front, and he must have seen it because I said, hey, his name's Justin. Justin, I got something for you. And I unrolled this thing as a poster, like about 30 by 40 inches or something like that. And his eyes got really big, and he said, "You're that guy." And he was just signing stuff, but he jumped up from behind the table, gave me a big hug. And the best part about that was my 16-year-old son was with us, and he got to see me autograph that for a rock star.
Oh, that's very cool.
Never happen again.
You can dream. It can happen again. You never know.
But this one's called Inheritance. It's about how alcoholism is passed from generation to generation. This is me on the bottom. That's supposed to represent my father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. And you can see they're all in tombs. and they're passing down the, in this case, beer down to me. And at the bottom, I'm pushing it back, clutching to my Northern Renaissance art book, because that's a style that really influences the way I paint. That one was the one that the collector bought and hung over his dining room table. The figures that you see in there are life size. So just to give you an idea of the scale. And yeah, these paintings, these figure paintings, they start out with drawings from imagination to figure out what I want to do. And then I get the models and pose them and shoot lots of photographs. Then I do a more finished drawing where I'm figuring out lighting and placement much more specifically. Mm-hmm. And then I get the canvas. In this case, it was a canvas because it was large, and put it on the canvas and block it in with umber and yellow ochre, and then start hitting the local colors and dealing with the values. And this one, I blocked everything in, and then I started up at the top and worked my way down to finish it. It actually is easier to paint larger than it is to paint, you know, on a smaller scale like the ones I'm doing now.
Could you share why that is? I know why it is, but like, could you share it to the audience? It's
simple. Small mistakes don't show up on big paintings, but they really show up on small ones.
Do you have any mistakes on this piece that you would like to share?
You know, I've heard of artists that put mistakes in on purpose. They want it to not be perfect, so they're not saying they're better than God or something like that. I don't feel like I need to do that. I mean, I think with my paintings, I don't think any of them are perfect. I think that if you look at them long enough and you know you know how to look at art, you can see where even with artists like Rembrandt or you know, the ones in the art history books, what makes them interesting is their mistakes. So I think that happens in any artist's work, and you try as much as possible to minimize that. But you know, hopefully, if there is a mistake, it was a happy accident, like Bob Ross used to say.
I love those. I love those. How long do you think it took you to complete this piece from beginning to finish?
300 hours plus.
Only 300. Only 300 hours.
Plus, it may be closer to 400, but no more than that. I have some smaller paintings that take me just as long. It isn't about the size; it's about the complexity, really.
And with the larger paintings, the blending is so much easier, right?
Oh yeah.
You don't have to compress everything. You know, your hand motion can be a little longer. You know.
And with the canvas, you can get the gradations much more easily.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So you don't really need the oil paint on that kind of a scale.
Mm-hmm. And what material is this from? What is it? As you said, is it canvas? Is it acrylic or oil?
This is acrylic paint. I use golden open acrylics because they stay wet longer.
Golden open acrylics.
Yeah, they're great. If anybody uses acrylic paint, they're trying to paint like this. That's the only acrylic that you can really do it with.
How long does a open acrylic last? Like if you have it,
I've had it on the palette. I use a glass palette. Stay wet for 2 or 3 days.
That's very good.
On the glass palette. Now on the panel or on the canvas, it doesn't. But in the summertime, it tends to dry faster. In the winter time, when it's colder, it slows down quite a bit.
And did you ever experiment with other acrylics before that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What was the trial and errors with those?
You know, I can do the same kind of painting with other acrylic paints. It just takes longer because then you have to go back over it and get the gradations right. So instead of, I don't know, 5 passes over, it might take 8 passes or more to get it right. It's a time thing. You know, if I use those, it would take longer than it does with the golden open.
So with these paintings, you're still doing layers like oils?
Absolutely. Starts out with heavier paint on the bottom, just like an oil paint, and bigger brushes. And then the next layer is a little thinner and more detailed, and the colors are more accurate. And the next layer, you can see more accuracy. At the end, I'm putting on scumbling and putting on, they're not real washy glazes like you do with watercolor. They have a little more opacity to them. But it ends up being a glazing process. And the acrylics actually are more transparent than the oil paint, believe it or not. I was telling that to my wife, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, because I've been experimenting with oils to see if it'll make things go a little faster. And they're more opaque, and it doesn't take as many layers as it does with the acrylic.
So I had a question about the acrylics, and it just passed over me. Would you like to share any more about this piece, or you want to move on?
Yeah, let's go to the next one. Because we were talking about one of the reasons the reason I brought this in. This is a still life painting I did that was part of the series of figure paintings. I thought, well, I'll try a still life. This one's called Sugar Baby, and it's about my addiction at that time to Dr. Pepper. So addicted to that stuff. I would drink 2 or 3 of these 20-ounce bottles a day, and it was affecting my heart rate. I'd had what's called PVCs. It would skip. And when I finally cut that out and started drinking black tea, it disappeared. So it was the sugar, I found out. It wasn't the caffeine at all. Anyway, I set this still life up in my studio, and obviously without the butterflies. And it was the first painting I'd done from life in years. When I'm doing the figure paintings, I have to use photographic references because it takes so long to paint the figures. And I was able in this one to, just get incredible amounts of detail. I wish I had a close-up of the eye and the pearl. It just turned out really well, simply because I had the references right there. I find that it's not a surprise. I knew this was going to happen, and I know that people at Work from Life know this already, but I didn't have to guess. I didn't have to make things up. I didn't have to approximate colors or change colors. It was there, and I could just do it, and it went a lot faster. So I'll go ahead. It's
really like I mention this all the time to my students, that like it's the picture is helpful, but like there's information that isn't there, especially if you're using if you got a bad photo and like a part of the body is in shadow, but you want to show that part. You're like, I'm going to use some of my imagination and my understanding of anatomy to kind of fill in those gaps. But when you have the still life objects there, right? As you said, the information is there. You can look around the object. You can using that 3-dimensional like rotoscope, right? You can kind of make the things feel more tangible when you're actually able to see it. It's weird how it works.
Absolutely right. And you cannot get the kind of detail in a photo that you can get in the painting. In fact, a lot of the photo papers are designed to only have a certain range of color. When you're painting, you don't have any limitations. And that's the beauty. And you also can layer paint with the painting, and the digital image, when you print it out, it's just pixelated. It's good for some things, but if you want something that has any real depth to it, doing a painting or buying a painting, if you want something like that, is much better, much better. But when I did these, that was what led me to thinking, well, I wouldn't mind painting still life. I don't have to hire models, and can still do realism, and that's what led to the series of duck paintings. This one's called Cold Duck. Now, the rule I have for these paintings is I use only yellow rubber ducks, and it has to have something to do with something that really exists. So Cold Duck is a drink that was invented in Germany. And instead of, illustrating the ducks with the drink, I just become more creative with it, and decided that I wanted to have ducks in some kind of a snowy area. Now, this isn't what I had initially decided to do. My wife, can you see the cursor when I move it through here?
Yeah, I can see the mouse.
Fantastic. My wife made the hats and scarves. She crocheted them so that we could have something to put on them, so it looked like they were cold. And because it was a drink that I was basing this on, we got these fake ice cubes online that photographers use. We bought fake snow. This snow, I'm originally from Missouri. This snow was so realistic that, I mean, if you didn't know it was fake, you couldn't tell. And the sled came from it's an ornament from a Christmas tree. And I was originally going to have one pulling the other one on a sled and keep it really simple. But because of those complex figure paintings, that's not what actually ended up happening. This is it set up. So I set the still lifes up in my studio, and I put boxes underneath a piece of cloth, and then I covered it with the fake snow and put the ducks in, put the ice cubes in, and had to. When I put the sled on there, I actually took one of my brushes and made it look like it had started going downhill. And I was going to have this background that you see here to make it look like it was still life, right? So that's it set up. And when it's blocked in, you can see it back there, obviously. This is what I mean by starting it with yellow ochre and some of the darker areas of burnt sienna, just to get an idea of where things are going to go. I have a little viewfinder that I look at the still life through. It's just a piece of paper that's the same proportions as the painting.
Yeah.
So that I can get an idea of how I want to crop it. And I like to start these days. Back in art school, they used to tell us, you should just paint the whole thing all at once. I found that I had to waste so much time correcting stuff that these days I start with the most important elements. In this case, it was the ducks, and then I work my way outward, since I kind of know what I want it to look like anyway. But you can see it's just a line drawing, and then I wipe it off if it's not correct, and I can make corrections if I need to. This is it blocked in, and what's nice about this image is you can see how thin it is. Even though I'm putting a lot of paint on, that acrylic, it really dries. When the water's out of it, it is really transparent. So you can see those first layers almost look like stains sometimes when you're looking at the duck, especially yellows are so transparent. This is a little heavier, but you can see that it's a more graphic interpretation of what actually happens later. You can see how dark some of this stuff was. But I did all this first because I didn't know what I wanted to do with the background. I thought, I don't really like that wallpaper pattern. And I thought, oh, well, it's supposed to be a German drink, so let's put it in the Alps. And that's when I came up with the mountains for the background.
Are those some grid lines right there?
What's that?
Are those grid lines in the that I see, like in between? Are those like pencil lines?
Oh, I put a really big grid on there.
Okay.
Because, the little window that I have is divided up into 4 sections each way. So I did that with the painting so that when I'm looking through the window, it gives me kind of an idea where things are going to go.
So did you when you is that a handmade window that you like put like some like dental floss or something in it?
No, I just mark it off on the edges. I don't have.
Okay. I thought you're saying there's actual lines on it, you know.
No, and it's tiny. It's a tiny little thing. Yeah.
This to me would be an acceptable painting, Kevin.
Dude, no. This is a close-up of the finished one. You can see one of the things I did was I wanted to create motion, so I took the scarf from the little guy and had it going back like he's really going down the hill. But little touches like adding the snow to the hat, I did that when I was sprinkling it on. Really, I thought made it. And if you look closely, I don't know if you can see it here, but the further back you go, the softer the edges get, which with acrylic is tough. Anyway, that's it again.
Why is it so tough to do that with acrylic?
It dries so fast.
Even with the special paint that you're using.
Yeah, it's acrylic. It's not oil, so you know that's one of the reasons I've been experimenting with the oil paint. I tried a couple where I just did the last layer with oil.
Yeah,
and that way I could get my edges and stuff. And I'm not sure I'm sold on it yet. I want to experiment it a little bit more. I mean, you can't tell that's not an oil painting, and like it matters anyway.
And what surfaces is it on?
Oh, that's right. I was doing wood panels before, but now I'm doing aluminum. It doesn't warp. It doesn't rust. You don't have any cracking issues. I mean, it's the perfect surface for that size. I wouldn't do aluminum if it was 8 feet wide, but for this size, it's great.
So how do you prep something like aluminum? Well, like, what's the prepping? How do you get that surface already?
They have panels through Jerry's Artorama, actually.
Really?
That have a textured side and a smooth side. So with the textured side's the one you use. It has a little bit of texture. I use metal primer, 2 layers of metal primer, and then I put 2 or 3 layers of artist gesso. on top of that, and then I sand it down real smooth.
What's metal primer?
That's what you use when if you're going to paint a boat,
Oh,
and you want to prime it before you paint it. You can get it at any store. I got mine at Sherwin-Williams.
and you can buy aluminum panels from Jerry's Autorama.
Yeah, they're big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you able to? Is it just a sheet of metal, or is it like, does it have a backing to it?
It's just a sheet of metal. For the size that I'm doing, 16 by 20, I don't need a backing.
Yeah.
When I put it in the frame, they don't warp anyway, but if they did, when I put them in the frame, it would take it out. If I had a 24 by 36, I might be inclined to put a backing on it. But then I just use wood and epoxy, I think.
Wood and epoxy.
They have some metal strips you can buy, but
and you used to do on wood panels, yeah?
Yeah.
And how did you prep those? How'd you go about prepping your own wood panels? Or did you just buy them? Sand them?
Sand it, gesso it, 4 or 5 layers, and then sand it down again, and it's good to go.
4 or 5 layers of gesso, all in sequence, and no sanding in between?
No, yeah, I tended to not sand in between. I just waited till the end.
Why would you do that?
When I sand in between, it takes off some of the paint, and you get to the panel sometimes.
Okay.
If I have the 5 layers on, then I can just do it.
Do you dilute your gesso, or was it just whole layers?
I don't dilute it. I just put it on thick, and that because I'm going to sand it anyway. In the end, it has a lot of texture to it, but at least I know it's covered. And then when I sand it, it's like hot press paper. It's got that kind of not slick, but just a little bit of tooth to it.
What's your favorite gesso brand?
Oh, it doesn't matter to me.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious to see how you prep your work and what process.
I think I'm using Utrecht now. That's
Utrecht. That's a good brand.
That's what I have. So yeah.
You just find what you have and use it. Kills primer from you prime your wall with. You want to go down that hole?
I have used house primer and wall primer and stuff, but the reason I don't anymore is because the latex that's in the artist colors is superior to the latex that you have in the house paint. That's the reason you want to use it. So I have this one here because it shows a little bit of the thought process behind these. This one is called Sitting Duck. Obviously, that's a sitting duck because if it moves, it's had it. That gator's going to get it. This one's actually going to be in the June-July issue of International Artist Magazine.
Wow!
So it got into the wildlife competition, and it came from the logo for the Florida Gators. How I wanted to set it up. I thought, well, I'm from Florida, so it would make sense to have it in profile, a lot like what you see in their logo.
Mm-hmm.
And here you can see what I did. I didn't paint it from a live gator. I went out and I bought. Here we have the Tarpon Springs sponge docks, and they sell sponges, and they also have these taxidermied alligator heads. So I bought one that was about the right size that I wanted in relation to the duck and set it up. And initially I was just going to do a white background like you see in those science books, and then they have the text.
Yeah.
You can see it's blocked in the same way with the brown lines and then the color going on top of the subjects. But once I had this all blocked in, I hated it, and I had to have a space. So that's when I decided to put some water in. And this is a close-up so you can see. I had to get a photograph of a live alligator so that I could deal with the eye, and the head that I had is dehydrated. So, and it didn't have the soft tissue in it. So I needed a photographic reference for that. But all this stuff was done from the model I had.
Yeah, you would lose some of its luster, like that color, because from this understudy, it looked dry, and then your finished product obviously looks more organic, more real, more fresh, got those colors in there.
And a lot of it's because it's not blended as much. With the gator, you don't want to blend it. Whereas if you look back here, you can see that's very heavily blended, and the eye also, and in the soft tissue. The more you blend it, the deeper the space is going to look, and that's it again. That one was fun. I really enjoyed that because I'd never painted a gator before. So I love when I get to paint things that I've never done before because it makes it a lot more fun. We see them all the time here, so not that special to me. This one is interesting because of how it was put together. This one's called Duck the Halls, after Deck the Halls.
Yeah.
And again, my wife made the little hats, and I made the stage. I actually built it out of leftover wood I had in the garage.
That's awesome.
And this is a lesson for your art students and mine too, is that sometimes you're going to have to do things that have nothing to do with painting. So you still have to be good at building. That's why we have 3D design and things like that when you're taking courses. And you have to make it, you know how to make it.
Do they listen?
No. The good ones do. The good ones do. But I went to architecture school for my first 2 years of college. And so we had this stuff hammered down our throats. And thank God. So what I did was I built that and did the staining on it and stuff. And this is the still life set up. I actually did a video that people can see on my website where I did a time lapse where each one comes into the frame and then steps up onto their place on the risers there. But that's what the painting was based on. You can see it doesn't have the wreath in the back. I did that from another source.
So that's really cool that 80% of your paintings are dioramas that you've constructed.
For most of them, and then this is a close up of that painting. People get confused. Oh, that must be this. No, that's not the still life. And you can see the softness, right, where you blend it more. And I left some lines in there to show the texture of the material. It's going to look softer. You can see that here too. And then where you see that around the lights too, bringing that glow into it. Where you blend it less, it looks more like wood. And then this is the painting again from a distance. That one was a lot of fun. And then this one is the last one. Again, it looks like I had basically just taken the Jeep with the ducks and put it into a landscape that already exists. But that's what's in the foreground. And then, of course, I had to cut these ducks up because they wouldn't fit into the toy Jeep so that they would fit. And I initially didn't really know what I wanted to do with the space, but we had taken a trip to Grandfather Mountain in North Carolina, and we still had some photos from that. So I decided I wanted to use that. And I wanted the duck on top to have a helmet. This is the warning device I have on my racing bicycle, so that when I'm out riding and I'm passing people, I can tap it on the head and it squeaks so they know I'm coming around them. So I wanted that helmet on there. I set it up there so it would be in the same light. And you can see there's the helmet on top of the duck then. And then, of course, I have to kind of fake the shadows in there to get it to work out. This one's also acrylic, and that's, you can see with the background, it's very soft, and that's from wet into wet techniques and glazing techniques and scumbling techniques to get that to work. Probably the easiest thing to paint in that was the stones, because they're supposed to look rough. I got those from my yard. So anyway, so that's all of that.
How many of those duck paintings have you made, or is that the totality of them that you have done so far?
Oh, no. I've if you go to the website, I've got 17 now. 17? I started them. We opened. How do I put it? Debuted the work on art storefronts in October last year. So October 2020. Mm-hmm. But I had been working on the paintings a year ahead of that time. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get enough of them on there so it wouldn't just look like, oh, this is just this one little thing he's doing and that's it. I think we had about a dozen of them when it launched. And now I've got 17, and I'm starting the 18th one right now. But I have ideas for over 100. I mean, I sat down with my son and my wife, and we came up with a whole list of these things where I either replace the one of the letters in a word with the D. So I have one that I don't know what the language is like on your broadcast, but I'm going to have to say it.
Go ahead.
I have one where I have made a painting called Duck You, which is supposed to be fuck you, right? And
oh no!
Yeah. Oh no! The FCC is gonna kill us.
Yeah.
But it's a yellow rubber duck sitting in the letter U, and it's actually indicative of the power of the yellow rubber ducks. They're so cute that you can do something like that, and nobody's offended by it. Well,
it's like a pun. Like you have a duck, and then you have you. You know,
exactly.
It's like those license plates. You know, or they have a bunch of letters and numbers. Like, what's this person saying with their license plate? You know?
Yeah, and it takes a while to figure it out. Well, these don't take. I mean, I have in addition to the paintings on the website, I have these. I call it Ducktales. It's a description of what the painting's about. And so it'll have the original phrase or the original word and its definition, and then I talk about why I did what I did in like a few sentences, right? And I have that in case I need to put it next to the paintings in a show, although they're pretty straightforward. That one with the Jeep actually is called Keep on Ducking instead of Keep on Trucking. And it's actually about this new craze that started in Canada. This woman started to, in order to spread joy to people, she started putting these yellow rubber ducks onto Jeeps with a little note, and it was all this good thing that's supposed to make people smile. It's huge now. It's in everywhere in the United States, and the Jeep company is aware of it, and I think is actually using it as further advertising, not on TV, but And so that's why I did that one, because number one, it's very relevant, and the second thing is I can get I was able to become part of these groups that do this, and now I can expose the work to more people as a result, and they really seem to like them, which is what that's the hope. You find people that can relate to it, and so it's become really interesting. I find that the people that follow this body of work are more interactive, more responsive, and much more into it than the people that were following the figurative works.
I think maybe it has to do with the humor of it. You have a high caliber piece of artwork, right? Right. And but you're also you're doing a subject matter that is not to be taken itself so seriously.
Right. And it's sort of in the lines of a Jeff Koons, right? I mean, he has these big, what look like inflatable animals, but they're made out of metal, and they're done in such a way that it's like high art. Yeah. So here's this guy his workshop anyway, spending all this time making this thing, and it's like a one-liner. And I thought, well, why not do that? I mean, that's essentially what I'm doing. Here's this one-liner, but the idea, it's the point is, wow, this is painted like high art, but then again, it speaks to people that maybe don't get to see high art so often. So I've been trying to do work that I think hunters can respond to. That in this case, people that own Jeeps can respond to. I'm doing one now that people that like baseball are going to respond to. It's called Foul Ball, FOWL. It's gonna, and if I do that, I mean, I do hope to sell the work, but it more is about being able to communicate to people that maybe haven't felt like they've been communicated to. By the art world before.
Yeah, when you have those, as I stated earlier, when you have those like hyperrealism, and then there's like this very specific type of subject matter, right? It doesn't resonate as much, and I think just you can't go wrong with funny art, and then you pack it with a hyperrealism, right? You got yourself a grand slam, right?
Well,
How long?
have you ever been to a show of hyperrealism?
I've only seen a few up close, but I haven't been to a show.
They had a whole show down here in Tampa at the Tampa Museum of Art, and I was really excited about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went. My wife took her art history and understanding art classes over, and I went with them. And I thought, wow, before I saw it, I thought I'm probably going to go back to this thing again and again. And while the techniques were impressive, it was boring, because it was okay. Here's a landscape, and it looks like a photograph.
Yeah.
Or here's a still life, and it looks like a photograph. And there's no meaning to it other really than the fact that it's technique. And that's what I like about these is that, yeah, it's technique. I mean, I that's what I focus on because I love the doing of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it has something, it's not profound.
Yeah.
But it has something else to it that can be entertaining rather than just looking, oh, here's another painting, big deal, that people will respond to.
It makes me recall a time when I went to the library and rented out a photorealism book, and I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. And then after you see like, oh wow, these are paintings, and then after a while I was like, they all look kind of the same, because like you just swap out the name of the artist and they're really kind of interchangeable, especially when I saw them in volume because I had a big book and it had like a bunch of like the primo photorealist of that time, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, okay. I was, after a while, it felt like sometimes I was looking at like bad photos, because they were
Yes.
good drawing, good paintings, but they weren't necessarily great photos,
I know exactly what you mean, because a lot of contemporary artists don't know how to design an image.
Yeah.
If you go into a series of books by Juliet Aristides, she teaches at an atelier up in Washington State, I think in Seattle. She has sections in her books about something called the armature of the rectangle. And it's this system that you can use that was developed probably before the Renaissance, but I know Renaissance artists use it for structuring your artwork. And they have paintings by people like Velázquez and Titian and some contemporary realists, where they actually break it down according to the armature of the rectangle to show you how it's designed. So when I'm doing my work, that's what I'm using. I'm essentially, I'm not drawing it on there, but I'm aware of where the lines are that you need to follow. You don't have to follow all of them, but if you follow some of them, you'll come up with a strong design. And a lot of the photorealistic stuff, I mean, don't get me wrong, technically, they're phenomenal. They really are. But as far as content goes, it just, like I said, it's really dull. And I can't imagine, and I didn't go back. I saw that show once and that was enough for me. Whereas if I go see somebody like a Van Eyck painting or a David painting, oh, I could go see that. I could live in front of it for, weeks because it's done. It glows. I mean, and the flesh really looks like flesh. The photorealist paintings, there's still a flatness to them. And, oh, it looks like a photo. Well, what else? There's got to be something more to it than that,
Do you ever reverse engineer some of those paintings? Did you ever? Okay, let's backtrack it. Did you ever reverse engineer some of those paintings from that show, and determine why it was flat?
Well, I mean, there are reasons for that. One is that it's based on a photographic image. They're not painting them from life. They're painting them from something that is flat, that doesn't have the capability of seeing subtlety. Even with professional photographers, there are limitations. So there's that. The other thing is that the techniques, for the most part, involve relatively bright colors with very soft gradations almost every time. One artist that I really respect, Richard Estes, he's out of New York City. And I have a big book on Richard Estes' paintings. and his buildings and his glass are great. But when he paints a figure, it's painted like the buildings and the glass. It just doesn't. And I know that's not his intent. He doesn't.
Mhm.
It's not his intent to do a figure painting. It doesn't have the same depth and presence as some of the classical masters who, while their paintings weren't as realistic, had a lot more roundness to them and a lot more depth in them.
Wow. Kevin, what was it like for you as a young kid in art? What'd you do?
I lived in a tiny little town in the middle of Missouri, not the middle, the east, right along the Mississippi River. It's called St. Genevieve, and its claim to fame is it's the oldest permanent settlement west of the Mississippi River. So because it's a historic town, there are all these old single family houses that are still there that they give tours through and things like that. But a population of the town, I think, is still around 4,400 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about an hour from St. Louis, maybe a little bit more. No Walmart, because they wanted to keep the mom and pop shops in business, so which is a great idea. It's cute. It is a cute town, very hilly, lots of trees. People are really great. But if you're an artist, not a great place. They did have a festival every year called the Jour de Fête, and it's a weekend where artists and craftspeople would come in and sell stuff. So in that respect, they were exposed to it. I mean, it was more commercial, but they had it. And they were surprisingly sophisticated. The people that went to see the show, the stuff. But I mean, I was in high school, in public school there from K through 12, and I mean, I spent all my time study. I was valedictorian of my high school graduating class, so I mean, I studied my butt off to get there because I knew the only way to move on was to get a scholarship somewhere, and that was one of the ways to get a scholarship. But I felt that my studies in K through 12, at least later in that time, influenced the artwork. Like I was studying and learning things, and I would find that was what was helping the paintings. I was mostly self-taught, and I did have a painting class in high school, and I worked with a sculptor. There was a figurative sculptor that lived in our town. I don't know how that happened, but I went to his studio and I would draw from his casts and his actual sculptures that he had there. So I had some experience with figure drawing before I went off to the university. I wasn't totally dumped into the deep end of the pool then. So that was good. But I mean, I sold some paintings to people in high school, and they put bug shields on the fronts of their big jacked up trucks. So I would paint their names on the front or whatever they wanted on the bug shield. I did political signs for my neighbor who was running for office, and I did lettering on the sides of trailers and stuff for businesses. So, you know, and I'd get commissions in high school to do paintings of landscapes from somebody's property, or I don't remember getting any portraits, but I may have. I just don't remember. And I remember one guy, he had me paint his souped up car, and it was a beauty. It was a gorgeous car, and it was a lot of fun to paint. So that's the kind of stuff. I did stuff for money, you know, and I actually did sell some stuff, but it was all about realism, you know, just becoming better and better and better at it.
Did you ever draw any cartoons?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did fantasy stuff. I did dragons. I did dinosaurs. When I was in college, I worked for 1 semester or 2 semesters as an illustrator for one of the publications we had. I went to Washington University in St. Louis, and it's a small school. So when I started doing the cartoons, and people find out, they hear my name, oh, you're that guy that does the cartoons. And they're like, yeah. They weren't anything big, you know. And I draw, you know, I did cartoons and stuff for my friends and in college. So, you know, one of my friends said it wasn't surprising to see me doing lame ducks and doing some of the funnier figure paintings. He said they're just like the stuff you were doing when you're drawing cartoons in undergrad. And I sat and I thought, oh my God, he's absolutely right.
Do you enjoy doing them more than your older work? I think they're more fulfilling.
They are just as realistic. So, and since that's what really drives me is the illusion and dealing, you know, making the technique better and better. I don't, you know, I like doing the figure paintings, but I can't sell them. I mean, I can, but it's so rare. These, I think once we get it launched, have a chance, because these paintings are priced at $3,000, whereas the other ones were $5,000 to $20,000. You know, I mean, who can afford that?
Only $3,000, Kevin.
Hey, 100 hours of work. I better get something out of it.
Yeah, and no gallery, so you're getting all of it, right?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if somebody did want to rep them, I want to make at least. I want to make a certain amount out of it.
Yeah.
So they would have to raise the price so that I could still get that certain amount, or they can forget it, because I don't. There's no way that I would want to get half of what I'm asking, because they just take too much time. And quite honestly, as far as the technique goes, there are people selling things similar in size for 3, 4, or 5 times that. So I don't feel bad. I mean, I'd rather, as I heard someone explain one time, I'd rather explain the price than apologize for the quality.
Yeah, because 100 hours, and you're if they were to sell it for 3,000 at a gallery, you get 1,500.
Right. Plus, take out your shipping.
You know. Oh yeah, that I wasn't even thinking about that part. And I was thinking if you were doing it locally, you know, if
they give a discount to try to get the sale.
Do they do that? Do galleries do that often?
Oh, yeah, galleries all do that. Nobody, as you know, being in art storefronts, no one pays full price. So I have to price them at the level where I know I'm going to be happy with it if I give 10% off. You know.
So they're $3,000 a piece. What does it factor down to, like, per hour?
$30 an hour.
About $30 an hour on average.
I figured out teaching full time at the college, I'm probably making that or a little more. So that's what I based it on.
I think you should probably base it on some of your peers there that are selling those works for 3 times as much.
No, I can't, because I'll never sell them. I mean,
Do they sell that often?
I sold one almost immediately.
Yeah.
But again, I need to have a bigger audience. And I need to have the right audience. Now, I have an opportunity coming up where I'm going to be showing them as part of something called Winter and Wine, which is held at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium for Winter the Dolphin. And there are going to be a lot of people coming there, donors, and they wanted me to come with the duck paintings because Winter's favorite toy is a yellow rubber duck. Well, at least one. And we knew that. So they had seen the work because I had submitted it to them, because I wondered if there was anything I could be involved in. So that's the kind of people I need to find. And it's just a matter of, you know, time, I think, and building up the list of people that are on my mailing list.
Yeah.
But also some towns with the name of Duck, North Carolina, for example, on the Outer Banks. And that's another place that I'd really like to focus on, you know, marketing toward, because I would think they'd love these things. Businesses and the hotels and the private sector, I think, would just love them. And if not buying a painting, you know, buying prints and buying merchandise. You know.
That's two things I want to bring up. The talk about not being able to sell your work, you know, that's something that I feel like consumers or people that are looking at artwork don't really factor in. If you're not selling your work, you're just storing it, and it can get so. If you've seen some, I've seen some artist studios who have rows of paintings. Just it's like they're like dominoes. There's like just it's this like 8 feet out, and like you're not going to get the painting in the very back. You know, you'd spend hours just moving paintings just to get the last painting in the back. So they're just storing it, and so yeah, I think you're onto something, because there's some truth to like, yeah, the paintings are of a superlative quality. Like they're super amazing, right?
Well, if you look at historical artists, those aren't paintings that they were just doing for themselves. I mean, they were painting for the Pope, or they were painting for the king. I mean, they were being paid to do their work. And if you can't sell the work you're making, you gotta do something different.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and the other one escaped me. I was on a little tear, and I had an idea, and it was about the marketing. Yes, that was because you were talking about marketing. That's another thing. Care to share some, like, marketing advice, or things or tips? No, share the marketing craft for artists that maybe a lot of artists typically kind of gloss over.
It takes a lot of work to do it right. I mean, you know this from our playbook that we have with art storefronts. I had no idea. And it takes a lot of work. And according to some artists that I've talked to that are good at it, you have to spend the first year just building up an audience. Don't even think about selling. So that's what we're doing right now. I mean, it'd be nice if we sell. But the other thing is that you've got to think about more than one venue. We have the website, but we're also looking at doing things like this art and winter and wine thing. Mm-hmm. There are also galleries, which I really have no interest in, because I've never had a gallery actually really do an outstanding job. They might sell one or two, but that's about it. I still have 3 that have work, and I'm going to keep working with them and hope that they sell, but they're just not selling enough.
Do they not? Are they not like salesmen? Are they just not good at selling art?
I really don't know. I can't answer that question because I'm not there. The other thing we're going to try are the outdoor exhibitions where you have to get a temporary tent and set up.
Art fairs?
Yeah, I didn't want to do that with the figure paintings. The only art fairs I did were those big international indoor ones, because figure paintings, it would cheapen them to put them outside, I think.
Yeah.
And the kinds of things that could happen to them, if a wind comes up, it would just not be worth it. These, on the other hand, they're small, and the kind of subject matter and stuff is perfect for an outdoor fair. So we were thinking about that, and there actually are these events where they have these huge rubber duck races.
Oh, cool.
Cities. Yeah, Tampa has this. People will buy up. I mean, there were like 15,000 yellow rubber ducks, and they put them in the Hillsborough River, and then they float down, and whoever's first, second, and third, they get these big prizes. Well, wouldn't it be great to set up an outdoor tent with these paintings and merchandise at one of those, and at least build up the mailing list, at least, because people have to see it several times probably before they buy it, or be drunk. Yeah.
I really like this painting. I'm about 9 beers in. I would like to purchase this painting of a duck, sir.
And where's your credit card?
Sold.
Well, and the other thing is, I couldn't market the figure paintings. What was I going to say about them? There was nothing tying them together,
Mm-hmm.
technique and their social commentary, or some of them were. These, it's easy. Not only is it easy because there's something tying them together, it's easy to put these on products. I mean, and I'm not thinking about that necessarily when I'm making them, but they are so easy.
Transferable?
I haven't released the products yet, but I have some on our storefronts on the website, but we're going to work with Zazzle and do many, many, many more and we want to, after we make them, buy some samples of them and see how they look. But it has been a lot of fun putting them onto the different products. It really has.
Yeah, they are definitely transferable just because of the playful nature of the
they're so cute, right? Everybody wants rubber ducks. I mean, my God.
I mean, they make really good T-shirts. I can see that easily, and that's another thing that a lot of artists tend to. A lot of fine artists too, like they tend to like veer away from, ew, prints. They cringe, you know. It's like, well, a lot of people like your artwork aren't making 6 figures a year and can't afford a $3,000 painting, but they probably can afford a $30 print, you know,
or $20 mug or something like that.
I mean, like you get more use out of it that way. Actually, the person buys a $20 mug of your piece, they're seeing it every day, you know.
Exactly.
Other people, the people that buy your painting, you know, they're not seeing that often. I actually heard a story where some stories where like artists would get their pieces sold, and one person was like, "Oh, I have your painting. I love it. It's just, it's right in front of the toilet, right in front of the bathroom." And like, and he was like, "That's great, because you'll actually look at it." You know, other places.
I made one specifically for the bathroom. Yeah. People that have bought it, that's where they put it. I mean, color, theme, everything.
They'll watch it. They'll actually spend time looking at it. Other times, you know, they'll put it in their office. They might look at it occasionally, but you know, they don't observe it as much as probably the bathroom.
And that's it. I mean, some of that fine art is never going to become part of their lives because it's just so esoteric. Where it's something they can really relate to. Hell, they'll do the advertising for you, you know, because they're buying the stuff and taking it around people. Where'd you get that? And pretty soon you have somebody else buy it. That's already happened, you know, over the holidays before Christmas. We had, when we first started the website, we had quite a few sales because of word of mouth, and people were they're buying more than one thing. It was great.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
But now, you know, it's real slow. I mean, we've attempted to have sales and it just hasn't worked out. So I think it's just a matter of building more of an audience. It's
really like the artist's job is never ending, unyielding. It's you're on 24/7, you know. I think I had a conversation with other artists, and I want to see if this is true to you. For almost every hour that you make art, you probably spend an hour or two for marketing, you know.
Well, actually, I'm lucky.
You're lucky?
My wife does the marketing.
Oh, you are lucky. You're so lucky.
She's outstanding. She, I mean, she teaches also. We both teach. She teaches part-time and I teach full-time. But my full-time job, taking care of our house, painting, those paintings take a long time.
Yeah.
And I exercise a lot because I don't want to, you know, just sit behind the easel all the time. Plus it helps me think.
Yeah.
I have no time. I do some of the marketing. I make the products. I shoot all the images and I fix them up in Photoshop. I do the descriptions. I'm doing blog posts, the text for it. She puts the stuff together, and she's the one that takes care of giveaways and keeping up with email, Facebook, and Twitter and stuff like that. I simply don't have the time.
It is daunting.
But I knew an artist. I met him at down in Miami, and he had 2 people doing his marketing for him, there with him.
Yeah.
So that he could paint and talk to the clients that were coming through.
Oh, that'd be nice to have that.
Yeah.
Like have that kind of extra cash to hire a few people to do marketing for you.
I have half of that. I don't have the.
Oh, that'd be nice.
But she also is just more business minded than I am. She has a journalism degree, and she also has art degrees, art history, and art education is her what she was going for in her PhD. But And she knows the work. I mean, she knows artwork because she's German. She's seen real art, over in Europe, and she's been to big museums. So she knows what she's talking about, right? So I also have somebody, if I need an opinion, I can trust her.
Yeah.
Well, she usually tells me stuff's done way before it's done. She's like, nobody's going to notice that. Oh, no.
I'll notice.
That's right.
Some like silly little thing in the corner that no one really paid attention to.
That's right. Oh, actually, the best compliment I ever got, it was so funny. And I say this when I talk about art for any length of time, I always have to say it because it, again, came from my son, right? So we were over in Europe. We were in Italy. We were in the Uffizi, right? And we're looking around, and he looks bored. And I said, we're standing in front of Botticelli's Spring, La Primavera. And I said, look, Nicholas, this is one of the greatest paintings in the history of Western art. And you look bored. I said, what is the problem? And he looks at me and he says, Dad, yours are better. No, they're not.
Well, I mean, I guess like when you're around that type of stimulus for all of your life, and then you're trying to present your son to like these great paintings, you're like,
Now his eyes popped out of his head when he saw David, Michelangelo.
David, yeah.
He was impressed by that in the building, the architecture. He loved that. But yeah, the paintings, he just couldn't get him interested.
So as an artist, and you're you're already stretched really thin time wise, like what kind of time management skills have you acquired, or or things that you have gathered in your experience in life that have helped you maintain a kind of proper schedule, or you're just like barely getting things done?
Oh no. Well, I mean, there is that because there's so much that needs to be done. But I don't really have a good solution to that. I mean, my solution is that I just don't get to hang out with anybody and have any fun. That's it. I mean, I get up in the morning, and when it's not COVID, I go to school to teach for 8 hours, and I go to the gym, and I come home, I eat dinner, I paint, and I go to bed, and I get up and do it all over again. And on the weekends we do, stuff around the house, or maybe we'll go do something fun, but it's honestly, it's rare.
Yeah.
The only time we really get to do anything significant is over our spring break, and Christmas break is our longest break. But we haven't been able to. We like going on trips, and with COVID, that just wasn't happening. Mm-hmm. So hopefully now that things, I mean, I just got my first shot today. So hopefully now that things are looking like they're returning back to normal a little bit more, we'll be able to do that again. Because that's something if you don't go out and see stuff, you just feel so, the energy to do artwork is just not there. I don't know how I maintain it. For me, it's an addiction. If I don't do it, I get really, and my wife will actually tell me, why don't you just go paint and forget this other stuff? And she's right.
It's almost like a habit that you kind of grown accustomed to.
Habit, more of an addiction.
More of addiction?
I'm like a druggie off of his drugs whenever I'm not doing them.
So once you stopped your drinking Dr. Pepper, you had to find a new addiction.
Oh, I had that while I was painting.
So you needed to double down on your prior addiction of painting Photorealism.
I guess. I mean, I have black tea now. It works just as well.
So you're an educator. You teach at the college level. Mm-hmm. What kind of advice would you give to your students that you've kind of already shared that they don't listen, but what kind of advice would you give to them?
No, like I said, only the good ones do. I am really hesitant to tell anybody to be an artist. Very hesitant, because it is not easy. And if you go into it thinking, and you're not that good, if you're sort of average and you think you're going to make a living, it's going to be a big awakening when you find out you're not.
Yeah.
Because there are so many artists, people that get art degrees, and they're having to work to support their artwork. I mean, I am, honestly,
Yeah.
I'm teaching full time because that's what pays the bills.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, is if you're going to do this, realize that you're probably not going to make a living doing it. The other thing is, if you want to make a living, go into commercial art. There's nothing wrong with that. Or interior design or architecture or something that has where there's an outlet where you can make some money. And I've had students do that, and they're doing well. I don't think I have any, and I don't know for sure, that have gone into fine art unless they're teaching. They're doing that, or education. I mean, we always need educators in K through 12 art education, and some of them have done that. And like I said, they're doing really well. The other thing I tell them is that take a marketing class or two, or minor in it.
Yeah.
It's better than paying a gallery half. And they always look at me, what do you mean? It's like, well, they get 50% of the sales. What do you think? That's the deal. And some of them now in New York are taking 60%. So if you get an agent that doesn't have an actual physical space, I think they take 35, but still it's a big chunk. So I recommend that they do that. And my students that I've had in the past, no matter what they've gone into, they say that probably the beginning drawing class is the most important one they ever had because of what they learned, those basic concepts. And so don't just fly through that class taking it as an elective, thinking it doesn't matter, because all you learn about controlling the materials and lighting and perspective and point of view and measuring and just all of it is so important for everything else. And no matter what medium, computer, sculpture, everything. And I think a lot of people just kind of blow it off, thinking it's not that big a deal. So I always tell them, if there's an animator looking for somebody to hire, who are they going to hire, you or me? Because that's their competition. They have people out there that are so good, and they think that they're going to get these jobs only if you're really good.
So. I totally agree. I have always every semester there's a batch of, well, actually almost all of them nowadays, batch of students that all want to be like game designers or some sort of like concept artist, and my heart goes out to them, because I like, that's good to have that dream, but the reality of it is it's a lot of work. It's a hugely demanding field. It's probably oversaturated. I don't know. I don't look into it. It's probably oversaturated by a lot and hugely demanding. And I like to think that I'm pretty good at drawing. Not great. I'm not like the phenomenal, but like, I'm like average based through all, like, I'm like the Mario of Mario Kart, where like I'm not super fast or super slow. I'm not good at super great at taking turns, but I'm average. If you ever played Mario Kart?
No.
So like the Mario Kart, there's like tiers. So like they have characters that are really fast, but they have very little control around corners, and they have characters that are really slow, but their corner turning is really good. So like it's like an abilities card. So I'm in between all that. So when I look at their work, I wish you could, as an educator, I can't. There's no like nice way of saying it. Like if I don't feel that I'm of the tier level of that some of these illustrators are at, to compete with them, you got to start drawing 8 hours a day for like the next 2 years, because it's going to take a lot of catching up to do. And right. And you got to have the ability to draw that long.
Well, you have to be able to do it without thinking about it. I mean, I've been drawing since I was 4.
Yeah.
Maybe even earlier. I don't know, but I know since I was 4. And I mean, you got to get to the point where, unless it's something that you're challenging yourself with, you don't have to think about how to do it. You just do it. I mean,
Yeah.
now that I have had all of the training in architecture and perspective, if I'm painting a scene that has perspective in it, I don't have to plot out vanishing points. You know, I can just do it. And that's what these students don't get, is they just, now they're in drawing one. The only experience they've ever had is high school, where they maybe drew a little bit, but not much.
Yeah.
And they think one drawing one class is going to prepare them for all they need to know about drawing. And it's not only the students that think that. Sometimes it's some of the administration you deal with, and at some of these fancy or artsy-fartsy schools, it's some of those faculty too.
Yeah.
Drawing just doesn't, in a traditional manner, doesn't seem to be that important. Yet, what is it that people are buying? You know, I mean, yeah, they buy abstraction, but I mean, if you look at some of the things that are selling, let's say in art storefronts, that it might not be high realism, but you know, that's what people are really like. It's what they respond to. So
yeah, it's just it's just interesting to hear that type of stuff. Oh no, you got a phone call. You got like an old phone with a cable.
With a cable. You know what that sound is? That's my son calling from work, because he has a job. Thank God. My wife picked it up.
That's great. Oh, so any other things that you would like to share to students?
I also tell them that if they want to be a successful artist, and this kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying about how long stuff takes and how you're just doing it all the time, that they have to give something up. You know, you can't be an artist and go out drinking all the time with your friends and have a fancy car and have a fancy house and all this stuff. It's just not. I mean, now granted, there are some artists that do that.
What about Jeff Koons?
Yeah, that's one of them. And Damien Hirst and people like that, but they've made it, you know. Yeah.
The Koon Man, Jeff Koons.
Say what you will, the man knows how to market.
Yeah, he's very wealthy. Jeff Koons is very wealthy.
But yeah, I tell them you got to give up something, and it's even when they're doing their projects in class, it's like you do understand that this is going to take, because I want them to be able to do an academic drawing by the time they leave my class, because they should, if they can do that, I feel that they probably will be able to do well, because they've taken the energy and time to learn how to do something that was difficult. Mm-hmm. Then that means that whenever they're given a computer program that they can draw and paint with, that they will be able to work through the difficulty of it and succeed. Because if you can't figure out how to do that, then you're not going to be able to figure out how to make art. I mean, you're just not. Especially anything that has any merit to it. So
let's reframe the question just a little bit. Let's tweak it so it's not pertaining just to students. What advice could you give to artists that are just starting out, or kind of in the middle, or just, you know, still pursuing their dream but not quite getting there?
Two things that they could do if they want to go into representational art. Take drafting classes so that you can really learn perspective. And instead of going to a university, go to one of the ateliers that are popping up all over the place, because they actually teach you and they grind it into you how to draw and paint and sculpt in a classical manner. Now, if you want to do something more, the best word is cutting edge, esoteric, or whatever, then my advice would be go do that stuff before you go to an art school, because a lot of the art schools don't teach that stuff anymore. It's been wiped off the slate.
Why is that? Do you know?
Because it's all about what's getting the attention now, and see, we went through this with abstract expressionism in the mid 20th century. Abstract expressionists, hardly any figurative elements at all except for de Kooning. And so they thought, well, now that this is the thing, nobody's going to do figurative art anymore.
Ever.
So they threw all the plaster casts out of the art schools and just taught abstract expressionism. Now it's computers, computers, computers. Well, if you are educating somebody to work on a computer, then you are leaving out people that want to do other things. Whereas if you start with the basics, which are applicable to everything, then they can start to try to figure out what they want to do, and they can kind of work their way toward it. I'm not saying we shouldn't have computers. I'm just, okay, there's a time for it and there's a place for it, but it isn't, drawing one. In fact, when I was in architecture school, now granted, this was years ago, but they had CAD programs back then in the 80s. 86 was when I started. The first 2 years of architecture school, we didn't get to use rulers. It was all freehand drawing and construction projects and things like that.
Wow.
It wasn't until you got to your junior and senior level that you were introduced to other systems, because they wanted you to know perspective, and they wanted you to be able to do drawings on the spot, because that's what you have to do when you have clients. And I tell you, that training, if I hadn't had that and then just went to art school, I wouldn't have got any of the perspective training that you really need to be able to understand forms and space. One class with a few projects is about all they have anymore, and it just isn't sufficient.
You need a lot. You need a lot of time to go over perspective.
Yeah, and it's boring, right? I mean, you have to keep repeating the same things again and again. People don't like that. They want it now, and they want the next shiny thing.
That's one of the things one of the struggles I have as a teacher, that I really do try to stress how repetitious a lot of these things are. And how, like, well, as you said, it can be very boring. As you said, next big thing. Like, I want to be able to draw this cool manga character. Like, well, you got to learn how to do this first. This is the key. This cylinder is the key right here. Let's get that down. Right. Then you can draw your manga character, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, I always use learning a foreign language as an example, because it's really pertinent to what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them don't have any drawing experience, really. It really isn't any different from learning French.
Yeah.
You get into your first French class, you're not going to be writing poetry and doing creative writing projects.
Yeah.
You're going to be conjugating verbs and boring things like that. Maybe you'll be doing short sentences, and learning pronunciation. You're not going to be able to speak French like a native in one class.
Yeah, I totally agree on the foreign language thing, right? It's just you what was it? You just don't fly into flying, What was it that quote? I heard a quote from a movie. I don't know. They want to jump into a sprint, and they haven't learned how to even casually jog or walk,
Exactly.
And it's I really do think that the smartphone and all this technology has really narrowed our patience a bit, and it's getting worse and worse. I've only had a small window of teaching at this point, but what from your experience, you've started in the 90s, is that correct?
Yeah, 94, 95, I started teaching full time.
Yeah, so you've been doing it for quite a while. How have the students changed? How's the attention spans changed? Could you care to share about that?
The thing is, it's not a generational thing. It has nothing to do with age. It has to do with how our culture is changing.
Okay.
Because the problems that I have with the kids that come into the class are the same problems that I have with people in their 60s that come in to take a class. Like you said, shorter attention span, lack of respect a lot of the time.
Oh, wow.
It just, the unwillingness to learn how to do things. They just think they already know how to do it. Now, that's not everybody. We have students that are probably at least as good, if not better, than some of the students we've had in the past. It's just that those students are becoming fewer and fewer. And I don't know if that's everywhere or if it's just, I think it is. I hear the same thing from other teachers. But see, I teach at a 2-year college. We have some 4-year programs, and we have our art program still 2-year.
Mm-hmm.
And so in many ways, our college is often the place of last choice for some of these people because it's affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to get into the state colleges first. And when they fail to do that, they come to us. So while we do get, and we don't have any requirements for SAT scores or anything, or a portfolio requirement. So we get people that are not, overall, are really not ready for the college experience. Again, there are some that really are, but the unfortunate thing is that because we're a 2-year college, we can't teach for the ones that are ready. We have to bring the ones that aren't up, or at least attempt to.
Yeah.
So everybody is getting something out of it. And I don't know, I mean, people say it's the tablets, people say it's computers, people say, I don't know what it is. I do know that people feel a lot more entitled and have a lot less patience. And those two things not only are problems in college, but socially you see it on the news and stuff like that too. And that's a huge problem.
Patience is like one of the strongest skills you can have as an artist. I can't stress it enough. And like I'll preach it in front of my class. They're probably like, "Whatever, you don't know what you're talking about." Blah blah blah. I was like, I was young once, so I understood a little bit. So I get it. But it is a really big skill to have. In order to make great things, you need to invest a great amount of time into it. You just can't make something in 30 minutes. Well,
you have to be dedicated to finishing what you start.
Yeah.
That, I think, is the key, because I think a lot of the time either they're not being challenged enough in some of their other classes, or they're not being forced to finish something that's and experience having to work at something. I know my son, this was one of the most impressive things I ever saw, is the first time he really had a challenge. I taught him how to play classical guitar. We were learning tabs, so we played at that, and he got really good at it. And he was in middle school, and he decided he'd try out for the jazz band. Well, jazz is not classical guitar. It's completely different. It's very difficult. And he got in. They were, okay, you're going to be in our jazz band. But he couldn't read music. So he had to teach himself how to read music and how to play in that style. And he practiced, and he practiced, and he practiced, and he persevered. And I said, and when he has problems now, I say, do you remember? And he probably is tired of hearing that story. When you were in jazz band and you had to work through that problem, how hard it was and how you succeeded. I said, this is no different, whatever's coming up. And I think a lot of our students don't have that experience. They are either allowed to just get by or something. I don't know what it is. But I find that part of the work ethic, that's one of the things that definitely is lacking.
Yeah. To not be challenged, right? Or to kind of be pushed forward, I guess. I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't want to be like, oh, what did I say wrong, right? But
it's all just our opinion anyway.
Yeah. You're right too.
Like we're preaching the Bible or something.
Yeah. Well, I saw. Have you ever seen South Park?
Oh yes.
There's an episode where Cartman starts impersonates a professor or like a teacher, like a high school teacher or something like that. And like every other scene, because it's like in a school that's like falling apart, and like they need to raise their grades up. And there's a couple scenes where he's like, "How can I reach these kids?" You know? There's sometimes after class, I say to myself, make myself kind of chuckle, like, "How can I reach these kids?" You know, and I'm like, "Oh gosh," I don't know.
It's tough, and the older you get, the harder it is, because when you're younger, you have more of a generational connection with them.
Yeah.
And when you get older, I mean, I just turned 53, so I mean, I'm old enough to be some of them's grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't have their experiences. You just don't. I mean, I learned to type on a typewriter, a manual typewriter. These guys, I don't think have learned how to make letters with a pencil. And I know a lot of them haven't learned cursive, and they've always had the internet, and they've always had more than 3 or 4 channels. And they've always had Facebook, and it's completely different. And I don't understand that, because I haven't experienced that from birth, right?
Yeah, that's probably the reason why patience is less than, because you know, some of those skills, like to learn how to type, to learn how to do cursive, they take patience. It takes time, you know. But now you don't necessarily have to type. You can just speak, and it types it for you. You know.
You should see some of the messages we get from our students. Let me tell you.
Why are you shouting at me?
Oh, it's not even that. If they're writing to a college professor and they can't spell anything or capitalize when they're supposed to, it's like, come on, this isn't a text.
Yeah. So Kevin, do you have any dream projects outside of the 100 ideas of ducks?
I always wanted to do a big altarpiece, like the Ghent altarpiece, for a Catholic or Lutheran church, probably for a Catholic church. But I just don't see it happening. I mean, that would be, I don't really like the subject matter, but I like the style, and I like the scale, and I think it would be a lot of fun. Besides, I find a lot of those religious images very surreal, so it'd almost be like doing a surrealistic painting. That I would like, because I was raised Catholic, and I thought that would be a lot of fun. I mean, other than that, I'd be happy to be doing well enough with the artwork that I can retire when I'm supposed to. That would be great.
Let's hope, man. Let's hope, right? Kevin,
otherwise, I don't want to lose my hair. I want to keep it long until I'm in the grave. How's
that? I've already passed that. I don't have any. So you're doing great.
But it's genetic. You can't do anything about it.
Can't help it. I can't help it. One more thing. Actually, not. I have 2 more things. I'm always missing this one, but do you have any life advice that you'd like to share?
God, no, I don't. I mean, I don't have anything. I tell you what. Here's probably the best thing that I could tell anybody.
Okay.
Young, if you're gonna marry somebody, then they better have the similar interests to you, and they better be your best friend. Bottom line, because I have seen so many people screw that up and end up regretting it later on, or sometimes right away.
Yeah, it's like a life philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's probably the most important thing, and never assume that you're right. I mean, that's the other thing. I see so many. I always have to bring political pundits yelling at one another.
I'm more right than you are. No, I'm righter.
Yeah, they just all assume they have the answer, and my big thing is, well, if either of them had the answer, then they'd be doing it.
Yeah.
It's good to listen to people and not assume that you know everything. I mean, I've been painting for years and years and years and years, and I don't assume that I know everything about painting. In fact, sometimes I feel like, God, I get to some of these paintings I'm doing and tell my wife, oh my God, I just feel like I can't paint anymore. it's something you go through. You're always questioning, how you do stuff. I mean, at least most artists I know are doing that. But you have to have that. It's healthy to not assume that you know everything. I mean, and not assume that only your experiences are the meaningful experiences. And I think traveling makes that a lot easier to understand. Mark Twain from my home state said that you cannot be racist if you have been other places. And he's right.
Kevin, how would you like the viewers to remember this conversation? How would you summarize it?
Oh God, I have no idea.
That's a good answer.
I'll tell you what, that there are still artists that think realism is important. I mean, that in light of all that stuff that you see in the art magazines, because that was something that I thought was interesting. I went to New York to show my work to a gallery owner, George Adams. He one day every week would allow artists to bring their portfolios in and show them his work, your work to him, and then he'd tell you what he thought. And when I showed him the work, I had two bodies of work. I had these sort of quasi-religious surreal paintings, which is, I thought, where I should be going, with nudes in them. And I had these traditional landscape paintings, pretty much like anything you've seen before. And when he looked at everything, he pointed to the figure paintings. I can't sell these. He pointed to the landscapes, but he said he already had some artists doing landscapes. Those I could sell. And I looked at him because I'd just gotten out of grad school not long before that. And I said, but wait a minute. What about all the stuff I'm seeing in the art magazines? That's the stuff. He's like, he went like this. He said, He said, it's in an art magazine. Yes. But is it selling? And I never thought, and I said, so what things are selling? He said, landscapes, sort of stylized figure paintings, still lifes, and some abstraction. He said, that stuff you see in the magazines, not necessarily selling.
So those magazines are deceiving.
Well, I thought that was so interesting because in art school, you're taught to strive for that high-end, sort of taking a chance kind of artwork. And yeah. That, according to him, and he was a New York gallery with a great reputation, not the case.
Kevin, thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
I was glad to be asked to do this. It's an honor.
No. It is an honor to have you on. No, Kevin, thank you so much for coming and talking to me, showing me your artwork, talking about your life philosophy. It was really quite nice. Before we go, where can people find you online?
It's www.kevingrass.art. All my links to social media are at the bottom of the page, and it's the best place to. It's really the only place because you can get to my Facebook and Pinterest and other stuff from there.
Thank you, Kevin. And everyone that's watching, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have artist interviews every week. They vary from either Sunday or Thursday. It depends on when I could schedule them in and how my schedule works. And I just want to say that we appreciate you, and hopefully you check out Kevin's work, and maybe give him a little follow on Instagram, or follow him on Facebook. Do a little bit of cyber stalking and follow him wherever you need to be following him. Thank you very much, everyone. Really do appreciate you. Gotta go. Pierson out.